Hello everyone, good evening, welcome to Teachtigers and wish you all a happy Republic Day. So in today's class, we are going to discuss the solutions to the questions that I have given you in my previous session. I hope you have at least tried attempting these questions, yes or no. I'm really hoping the answer to be yes. So I have already given an introduction about myself. My name is Priyanka Mitra and I'm really excited to be your biology mentor on this brand new platform. And I've also told you about the program. There are going to be 16 sessions. And if you have any doubts, please do not hesitate to ping us on Telegram. And there's going to be one grand test in the end where we are going to cover questions from the entire syllabus. तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं. आपका पहला प्रश्न स्क्रीन पे ये रहा. In human digestive system, the enzymes pepsin and trypsin are secreted by. Yes, think about the answer once again. What are the enzymes pepsin and trypsin? These are the enzymes that act upon the proteins that are present in the food. And where are these enzymes secreted? So pepsin is secreted in the stomach and trypsin is secreted in the pancreas. So I think most of you have written pancreas and stomach, which is absolutely wrong. Why? Read the question once again. They have asked about pepsin and trypsin and not trypsin and pepsin. So the answer is stomach and pancreas. Okay, so remember, stomach secretes pepsin, which requires acidic environment to act, and pancreas secretes trypsin, which requires alkaline environment to act. So what is the next question? The first enzyme to mix food in the digestive tract is. Okay, so tell me, where does the process of digestion begin? You might say the stomach. Okay, so what enzyme is secreted in the stomach? Pepsin. So if you have written pepsin, then it is the wrong answer. So where is the mistake? The process of digestion begins inside the mouth, where the enzyme amylase, which is secreted by the salivary glands, will act upon the carbohydrates that are present in food. So what is the answer? It is amylase. So please remember, the process of digestion first begins inside the mouth, okay, where amylase will act upon the carbohydrates present in the food. Next question, the process of obtaining food by amoeba is known as. Okay, so what is amoeba? Amoeba is an unicellular organism which keeps changing its shape, and amoeba doesn't have a mouth or an anus like human beings, right? So it gets its food with the help of finger-like projections known as pseudopodia. And what is that process known as? It is a very direct question. The answer is phagocytosis. Okay, it is the right answer, right? So phagocytosis is a process by which amoeba will engulf the food particles inside. Next, which of the following increases in muscle cells when they are lacking in oxygen? Okay, so when will the muscle cells fall short of oxygen? When we are performing some sort of physical activity like running, walking or exercising, right? That is when we fall short of oxygen. So what will increase in the muscle cells during these conditions? Now I think most of you have written lactose, which is not the right answer. Yes? Then what do you think is the correct answer? The right answer is lactic acid. Okay, do not get confused here between lactose and lactic acid, right? Lactose is a kind of sugar, whereas lactic acid is produced by the breakdown of glucose when there is a shortage of oxygen in the muscle cells. Next, the energy currency of cells in biology is, okay, this is a very direct question. So the answer is ATP, which is the right answer, right? ATP is also known as the energy currency of the cells because the energy that is produced in our body will be stored in the form of ATP, right? And what is ATP? ATP is also known as adenosine triphosphate. So this is a molecule, okay, which has 3 phosphate molecules in it. So the energy in our body will be stored in the form of ATP, and when the body requires energy for later use, this ATP will be broken down again to release the energy. Next, the breathing and respiration in woody stem of a plant takes place through. Now if you remember, we have studied that all the parts of a plant, they respire individually. Now plants have different parts, right? Like the roots, the stems and the leaves. So what structures do these stems use for respiration? It is lenticels, which is the right answer. Okay, so woody stems, they have structures known as the lenticels through which they perform respiration. Right, then how do the leaves perform respiration? Through stomata. And how do the roots perform respiration? Through structures called the root hairs, right? So remember, woody stems have structures known as lenticels present in them to perform respiration. Next, which of the following carries substances upwards as well as downwards in a plant? Yes, which tissue of the plant is responsible for carrying these substances in both the directions, that is upward as well as downward? The answer is phloem. Okay, how many of you have written phloem? Let's see if it's right or not. Yes, that's the correct answer, right? So phloem carries food in both the direction, that is upwards and downwards, and that is because the food that is produced in the leaves, okay, so here leaves is known as the source, and then the food from leaves will be loaded into the sink, right? That is the sieve tubes of the phloem tissue. So the source and the sink will vary depending on the weather conditions and many other factors. Because of these variation, okay, because of this variation, the phloem tissue will carry substances in both the directions, that is upwards as well as downwards. This is also known as bidirectional movement. Okay, bi का मतलब क्या होता है? In both the directions, right? So bidirectional movement is shown by the phloem tissue of the plant. Next, blood is pumped from the heart to the entire body by the, okay, so this is also a direct question. The answer is atria, which is the right answer, right? So please remember this important point here, that the arteries are responsible for carrying the blood away from the heart, whereas the veins, they carry the blood towards the heart. Okay, this is a very important point to be noted here. So remember, the arteries, they are responsible for carrying the blood from the heart to various parts of the body as well as the lungs. Okay, so we have studied about aorta. Aorta carries the blood from the heart to different parts of the body. Next, coagulation of blood in a cut or wound is brought about by. So what is coagulation of blood? Coagulation, what do you understand by coagulation? Coagulation means clotting of blood, okay, the stoppage of bleeding. So what is responsible for bringing about this function in our body? Now if you look at these options carefully, there are platelets, WBC and RBCs, right? So platelets, WBC and RBCs are known as the blood corpuscles, okay, or the blood cells of the body, right? Then what is plasma? Plasma is the liquid portion of the blood, okay, well, it is a component of blood, but it is the liquid portion of the blood. In fact, it is the major portion of the blood. So these are the blood cells. Now, which is responsible for performing clotting of blood? It is platelets. Yes, let us see if it's the right answer. Yes, platelets is the right answer. Platelets are the cells that immediately rush to the site of injury or wound, and they bring about clotting of blood by forming a platelet plug. Okay, so this platelet plug will form a barrier against the blood flow. Okay, so remember, platelets are the cells which help us in coagulation of blood. Next, the procedure of cleaning the blood of a person by using a kidney machine is known as ketolysis, hydrolysis, dialysis or photolysis. Okay, this is also an easy one, right? You should be able to answer this. The process is known as dialysis. Okay, so what is dialysis? Dialysis is where the kidney of the patient has failed to function and the blood will be taken from the patient and filtered outside the body. Okay, so it is the right answer. So as I said, dialysis is recommended only when both the kidneys of a patient will fail to function and the blood will be taken outside the body of a patient and will be filtered outside the body using a machine that is known as dialyzer. Right, so this dialyzer just mimics the nephron of a kidney, right? Nephron are the filtration units of kidneys. So this dialyzer just mimics the nephrons that is present in a kidney, and here the principle behind this is osmosis. Okay, so by osmosis the blood will be filtered. Next, the muscular tubes which take the urine from the kidneys to the bladder are, right? So we have studied about the excretory system. Now, what are the main parts of the excretory system in human beings? We saw that the excretory system consists of the kidneys, ureters and urinary bladder and urethra, right? So which is responsible for taking the urine that is formed inside the kidney and it takes it to the urinary bladder where the urine will be stored? It is ureters. Okay, देख लेते हैं सही है कि गलत? Yes, it is the right answer, right? So ureters are tubes which connects the kidneys to the urinary bladder. So the urine that will be formed inside the kidneys will be taken with the help of ureters, okay, which is a tube-like structure, into the urinary bladder where the urine will be stored and then it will be released through the urethra when the person goes to the toilet. Next, amoeba feeds with the help of, okay, so what is amoeba again? It's an unicellular organism which doesn't have a mouth or an anus and it takes its food by the process of phagocytosis where it will engulf the food particles inside, okay, and how exactly is it able to do this? With the help of certain finger-like projections, okay, what are these finger-like projections known as? They are known as pseudopodia. Yes, it's the right answer, right? So pseudopodia are finger-like projections which are found in amoeba that helps the amoeba to feed as well as keep changing its shape, right? So pseudopodia is also known as the false feet of amoeba. Okay, they just resemble the feet but they are not the actual feet. So remember, amoeba is able to feed because of the help of finger-like projections known as pseudopodia, and it is also able to change its shape because of the presence of these finger-like projections, जिसको हम बोलते हैं pseudopodia. Next, an enzyme that acts only in an acidic medium is pepsin, trypsin, enterokinase or amylase. Now, all these are different types of enzymes, right? तो ये enzymes क्या होती है? These are biological catalysts. Okay, so enzymes, they need certain pH conditions to act. Some enzymes need an acidic pH, some enzymes need a neutral pH, some enzymes they need a basic pH to act. So out of these enzymes, which one will act only if there is an acidic medium present? The answer is pepsin. देख लेते हैं सही है कि गलत? Yes, it is the right answer. So pepsin is an enzyme which is secreted inside the stomach of the human body and it will act only if there is an acidic environment present inside the stomach. And what creates the acidic environment inside the stomach? It is the hydrochloric acid, okay, also known as HCl, okay, represented as HCl. HCl is responsible for creating the acidic environment in the stomach. This acidic environment will activate the enzyme pepsin and then pepsin will act upon the proteins that are present in the food. They will break the proteins into simpler substances, right? And the stomach secretes another component. What is that another component known as? Mucus. Okay, so these are the three components which are secreted inside the stomach. Okay, three main components, that is the pepsin, HCl and mucus, right? What's the function of mucus? To protect the stomach from the harmful effects of these acid that is produced inside the stomach, right? So remember, these are all the components which are produced inside the stomach, and pepsin is an enzyme which needs acidic environment to act. Okay, next, the most common substrate of respiration is, तो पहले तो मुझे ये बताओ respiration क्या होती है? Respiration is a process where the nutrients that are present in the food, okay, that are formed inside the small intestine will be acted upon by oxygen to release energy inside the body, right? Our body needs energy to perform so many different functions. So this energy will be supplied from the food by the breakdown of the complex nutrients into simpler nutrients. Now out of these simple nutrients that are formed, which one is the first one to be acted upon by oxygen, okay, which serves as a common substrate for respiration? It is glucose. Yes, how many of you think this is the right answer? Check kar lete hain. This is the right answer. Okay, so glucose is the most common substrate for respiration. Glucose will combine with oxygen that is present in the air and it will form carbon dioxide and water and also releases energy, right? There are also other pathways by which the glucose can be broken down to release energy. Okay, we saw there's a pathway where glucose will also be broken down in the absence of oxygen and release ethanol and carbon dioxide and energy, right? So this is known as anaerobic respiration. And if it is being broken down in the presence of oxygen, then what will be the products formed? Carbon dioxide, water and energy. And what is that process known as? Aerobic respiration. Okay, next, the food is transported in the phloem in the form of, okay, glucose, sucrose, amino acids or fats. So how will the food be transported inside the phloem? So where exactly is the food being produced? In the leaves of the plant, right? By the process of photosynthesis. So we saw that photosynthesis is a process by which the plants are able to make their own food, that is glucose, okay, using the light energy and inorganic materials like the carbon dioxide and water. Now, will the glucose be transported inside the plant as it is, or will it be converted into another form for transportation? It has to be converted into another form of sugar. What is that? Sucrose. So how many of you think this is the right answer? Yes, it's the right answer. Okay, so the glucose will be converted into sucrose. Why? Why does the glucose have to be converted into sucrose? Because sucrose is more water soluble when compared to glucose, right? And sucrose is also less reactive when compared to glucose. So it becomes more easier to transport the sucrose, and sucrose is also more energy efficient. Now what does that mean? That the energy that will be required for the transport of sucrose is less as that of the energy that will be required to transport the glucose in the phloem. That's why the food that will be produced in the leaves will be in the form of glucose, but then it will be converted to sucrose and then it will be loaded into the sieve tubes of the phloem tissue, and then the sucrose will be transported to different parts of the body along with the water, right? So sucrose is more water soluble, it is more energy efficient, that is it will perform the same task, okay, with more less energy, right? So sucrose is more energy efficient, that is why the glucose will be converted into sucrose before its transport. Now, let us look into some of these subjective questions. Okay, so these were some of the MCQs that we have discussed so far. Now, let us look into some of the subjective questions. So, I will be giving you the answers directly. So, you are just going to cross-check if your answers are right or not. Okay, so the process in plants that links light energy with chemical energy is known as photosynthesis. Okay, photosynthesis is a process where the light energy from the sun is getting converted into the chemical energy. Okay, and the food is being produced in the form of glucose. Okay, that is a carbohydrate. And what are the inorganic materials which are required for photosynthesis? It is the carbon dioxide and water, right? Next, cells that surround a stomatal pore is known as guard cells. Okay, so what are guard cells? These are certain bean-shaped cells, right? Bean-shaped cells that will surround the stomatal opening. Okay, and these guard cells, they facilitate the opening and closing of stomata. So what is the function of this opening and closing of stomata? Why is this opening and closing required? To regulate the uptake of carbon dioxide by the plants and also to prevent the loss of water by evaporation. Okay, next, an enzyme secreted from gastric glands in stomach that acts on proteins. It is pepsin. Okay, so pepsin is an enzyme which is secreted from the gastric glands which are present inside the stomach, and it will act upon the protein. So remember, stomach secretes the enzyme pepsin, and this pepsin is responsible for the breakdown of proteins that are present in food. The basic functional unit of human kidney is Nephron. So nephrons is the basic structural and functional unit of kidney. It is responsible for why the kidneys are able to carry out the function of excretion. Okay, so nephrons are the filtration units of the kidneys. Then the nitrogenous waste in humans is excreted in the kidney, right? So kidney is the organ where the nitrogenous waste will be excreted. Okay, it will be excreted in the form of urine. Then what is the liquid portion of the blood called? Okay, so blood is a substance which is found in our body, which is responsible for carrying various other substances, okay, from one part to another part. So this blood has different components, okay, that is the plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells and the platelets. Now red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets, they form the blood cells, whereas the plasma is known as the liquid portion of the blood. And also remember, plasma forms the major component of the blood. Okay, almost 55% of blood is made up of plasma. So just cross check your answers once again. Yes, how many have you got correct? I hope all 6 of them are correct for you. Okay, so moving on, next question. Mention any 2 components of blood. Write the function of valves present in between atria and ventricles, and write one structural difference between the composition of arteries and veins. Yes, so let us discuss the answers. So the 2 components of blood are the plasma and the blood cells, as I said, right? Plasma is the liquid portion of the blood and the blood cells are another components of blood. Okay, so these blood cells are of 3 types, that is red blood cells, white blood cells and the platelets. Then the valves are present in the heart to prevent the backflow of blood when the atria and the ventricles will contract. And arteries, okay, one structural difference between arteries and veins is that arteries are thick walled whereas veins are thin walled. Okay, arteries are thick walled because they have to withstand more pressure during the blood flow. Okay, so this is one structural difference between the arteries and the veins. Next, what is aerobic respiration? Explain briefly 3 steps involved in aerobic respiration and draw respiratory system and label pharynx, trachea, lungs, diaphragm, alveolar sac on it. Okay, so these are generally the 5 marks questions that might be asked during the exam. Okay, so let us discuss the answer. The respiration which uses oxygen is known as aerobic respiration. Okay, what does that mean? The respiration during which the glucose will be broken down to release energy in the presence of oxygen is called as the aerobic respiration. Okay, so you just need to write the definition and what are the steps involved in aerobic respiration. Okay, so aerobic respiration happens in 3 stages, that is glycolysis, the Krebs cycle and the electron transport. So remember, these are the 3 stages that takes place in the aerobic respiration. Okay, and here's a picture of the human respiratory system. So you need to draw the diagram and only label the parts that have been asked. Okay, but for now I'm going to explain once again all the parts. Okay, the location of all the parts. So there is this nose from which we take in the oxygen. Okay, the oxygen that is present in the air, we breathe in through the nose. Then the nose will lead into the nasal cavity. Okay, it leads into the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity will then take the air to the pharynx. Pharynx will just humidify the air and then pharynx leads to the larynx. Okay, so what is larynx? Larynx is also known as the voice box, right? It is also known as the voice box because it is responsible for giving us our voice, right? And this larynx leads to trachea. What is trachea? Trachea is commonly known as the windpipe. So trachea has C-shaped cartilaginous rings to prevent its collapse, and trachea will branch into bronchi and the bronchioles. The bronchioles has tiny air sacs in the end known as the alveoli. Okay, these alveoli are the region, are the site where the actual gaseous exchange takes place, that is the taking in of oxygen and giving out of carbon dioxide. Then the air will be filled in organs known as the lungs. Okay, so there is a right lung and the left lung. These lungs will be housed in the chest cavity and then they are separated from the abdominal cavity by a structure that is known as the diaphragm. Okay, so you need to draw the diagram and you need to label the parts that have been asked in the question. Next, name the organs that forms the excretory system. how urine is produced in human body. Okay, so this is another 5-mark question. So let us discuss the answer. So what are the parts of the excretory system in human beings? So the excretory system in human beings has a pair of kidneys, has a pair of ureters, only one urinary bladder, and urethra. Okay, so kidneys are where the urine will be formed, then it will be carried through the ureters into the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder is where the urine will be stored, and from there the urine will be released through the urethra. Urethra is the opening of the excretory system. Okay, so these are the various parts. Okay, 4 important parts of the excretory system. So you will have half mark for each part, so it will be just 2 marks, right? And then 3 marks is for this question. So here they have asked how urine is produced inside the human body. So what is the process of the urine production in the human body? So kidney has filtration units, जिसको हम बोलते हैं nephrons, right? So the structure of a nephron has various parts. Now, if you remember, we saw that it has a tuft of capillaries which is known as the glomerulus. So the blood will first go to the glomerulus, right? And this glomerulus has a cup-like structure around it known as the Bowman's capsule. So Bowman's capsule acts just like a strainer that we use at our homes. So the blood that will go to the glomerulus will get filtered, and this filtrate will collect into the Bowman's capsule. From there it will pass down through all the tubes of the nephron. Okay, nephron has different tubules, right? The proximal convoluted tubule, the distal convoluted tubule, and loop of Henle. So in these tubules again reabsorption takes place. Okay, so the urine that is being formed, again from that various important substances like the glucose, amino acids, certain ions like sodium and potassium ions, and even water will be reabsorbed further. And finally the urine that is being formed will be stored in the urinary bladder and will be released through the urethra. Okay, so this is the formation of urine inside the human body. Okay, this is also an important question. Okay, this is a 3-mark question that you need to remember. Next, state reason for the following. Rings of cartilage are present in the trachea. Plants look green in color. Write other names of the following, that is alveolar sac and voice box. So let us now discuss the answer. Okay, so why are rings of cartilage present in the trachea? To prevent its collapse even when there is no air present in it. Okay, and why do plants look green in color? So this is also a very important question. Plants look green in color because of the presence of the pigment, that is chlorophyll, which is present in them. So remember, not all plants can photosynthesize. Only the plants which have the green pigment known as chlorophyll present in them can perform photosynthesis. Okay, and chlorophyll is also responsible for giving the green color to the plants. So now you know, right, why plants look green in color. It is because of the pigment called chlorophyll present in them. Now, what is another name of alveolar sac? It is alveoli. And what is another name of voice box? Larynx. Okay, so these are parts of the human respiratory system. Alveoli is the site where the gaseous exchange takes place in the human body, and larynx is the organ, okay, which is responsible for giving us our voice. So this is the end of today's session. I hope you have got all your answers right. So meet you in next session. Till then, take care, tata and bye bye.